of November 2024. Thank you for coming out on this cold and wet evening. These meetings are now recorded live and streamed live and stored on the Town Council's YouTube channel. By virtue of attending the meeting, you give your consent to having your image and your audio recorded for this purpose. If you don't wish for your image and audio to be recorded, then please do not stay for this meeting. For those in attendance, we are not expecting a fire drill tonight, so if you hear the fire alarm, please head for the nearest fire exit and congregate at the fire assembly points by the open centre at the front of the park. Thank you, everybody. So, I'll take item 1 on the agenda, which is apologies.
Thank you, Chair. I have apologies from Councillors Horskins, Kennedy and Lewis. And just to note, Matthew, Deputy Secretary, and Councillor Horskins are joining us remotely, as is Gareth from Berkshire.
Well, everybody here and on the way. So I have item 2 then, which is declarations of interest. Okay, none of those. So we'll take item 3 on the agenda, which are the minutes of the meeting held on the 4th of July 2020 to approve those minutes. And then we'll serve as minutes.
Just to note, Chair, there was a typo on the agenda.
On the agenda.
The minutes of the 3rd of September.
3rd of September, so I think we're a full council on 24th. That's 24th of September. If all those agree to those minutes, can I have all those in favour of those minutes? Can I have a show of hands? And those against? Those abstaining? Those minutes have been approved. Right, I will take item 4 on the agenda, which is to review the follow-ups that are described in appendix 4 on page 3.
Yes, yes. If I can just draw attention to a couple of things. Obviously, there are a number of completed items on page 4, which are there just to note completed. They'll come off the list for next time. A couple of items to draw attention to. Minute 34, just to note that Councillor Edwards has provided some information regarding a survey of residents showing support for investment. And to know that there is a full report going to Strategy and Resources Committee next week to consider the way
Good. Yvonne, did you want to say a word there?
Well, just really that myself and Councillor June, we went to talk to residents and thought we should really consult with local residents to see how they felt. So we went to all of the houses in the immediate vicinity of Weevil Park, and just we got overwhelming support for the idea of upgrading certainly the play equipment for younger children. We've got lots of ideas from residents, and I have recorded and made a report to that effect. So,
have you sent it? I was going to say, have you sent it?
I have sent it to Kevin, and then Kevin. That's the report you're referring to, Kevin.
Yeah, and we'll refer to that at the SNR meeting next week.
Good. All right. Thank you very much, Paul.
Also, just in minute 56, which relates to a proposal for pathways around the north end of the playing fields. Just to note that prices gathered quite high for the type of service that would be suitable. It's considered that a tarmac park would be the answer, particularly given the runners in that use it will get any other type of service, even when used run around it, can always used to the sign, and the cost of anything other than the glass reinforcement. That said, and my intention is due to the likely cost of that, we are looking at a more significant project as Essential as a whole. That it would make sense to include that as part of a larger project for consideration for funding.
I think, to be fair, if we were to consider it as part of that, we'll probably drive the seen as such a large cost.
Yeah.
And all I would think of is, can we try and include other technologies in addition to just regular tarmac? Thinking of the ones that will allow the percolation of water.
Yes.
And will reduce runoff, things like that.
Yeah, they're very fond.
Yeah, okay, we should think that should be absolutely. Good.
I know.
Any other questions, councillors? Okay. I'll go on to item 5 then, which is our budgetary report on page 1.
Okay, thank you. So this is the budgetary report on pages 5 and 6. So just to note that both expenditure and income are where we would expect them to be at this point in the year. These figures are to month 7, so to the end of October. I think the points to note particularly are particularly strong income from the Park Leisure Centre and also the community halls, which have been very busy with social work. Woodford Park has been very strong.
Will we hear a bit more about that in your report?
Specifically,
Yeah. Can I ask just, where's that income coming from?
so things that are doing particularly well this year in sports.
Okay.
Our sports are doing really, really well. Gym memberships up from where we expected to be. Where we expected it to be. Actually, there aren't many things that aren't quite we anticipate they'd be. You said that actually across the board, everything's strong.
Everything's strong.
Just the indications that it's busy.
Great news. Great news. Thank you very much. Any other questions, councillors? We will take item 6 on the agenda, which is the Woodford Park Leisure Centre Sports Development Activities, which is to receive a report on page 7.
Thank you very much. Good evening, everybody. So, as always, I've provided a little chart there at the top just showing the reasons that members or ex-members provided as a for cancelling their gym memberships. Nothing particularly stands out to me there, but as you can see, it's been quite a positive period. We had 76 new members joining and 60 leave, which is actually quite rare through the kind of later parts of the summer and the early parts of the autumn. I would have expected that to almost be the opposite way around, so that's good. The only one I will pick out on this graph is the singular reason that someone gave as being able to put into exercise classes. Our exercise classes are becoming more and more common, and it is an ongoing problem. Actually, most of them are running with a waiting list at 100% capacity. Again, Simon Centre is busier than ever before. We've got more gym members than we've ever had before, and we're forever looking for additional space throughout the building to put additional classes on. The main issue is that we have almost run out of space, so there isn't really any sensible rooms anymore to put exercise classes in. And of course, this time of year, when I'm outside, it wouldn't be consistently available. So I wouldn't be surprised if that number creeps up in future reports, depending on obviously how we're. Otherwise, everything's pretty much where I expect it to be there. The second graph, I actually included mainly because I thought it would just be of interest to this committee. Normally I include income, as that's what so I put together this graph using our basically just to show the work centre. This graph includes all gym members, all health habits card holders, which is the recreation card, and also all of the customers that just turn up and pay as they go for some of the sessions that we run. And as you can see, our kind of average age bracket is probably slightly higher than the average age bracket for most gyms in the area. But I also use this to try and tailor the type of class and the type of time of class that I offer, which is probably why we have the daytime timetable. So the evening timetable. I thought that graph would just be of interest to you guys to kind of get a visual idea for the age.
Thrilled to see. I might be using a gym in my 80s or 90s. That's very impressive. So,
that's, I think she's 91 years old, I believe, and she regularly attends 2 exercise classes a week. Wow. Really good.
Okay. Just remember. No excuse. Okay, thank you.
So just a little note there that we've recruited a new full-time duty manager. He started mid-October and has settled in really well. And we've also just finished the recruitment process for 2 new part-time receptionists, just to fill vacancies where people left to university this September. So that's been really positive. And obviously, we're just working through the early stages of the training with that and integrating into the team. October half term, the family records tackle brand was popular again. As you can see, I've included a comparison to the previous year. I would always kind of look at the result really, because it all really depends on what the bookings people here. If you have a big booking in one of the days, it would be quite reasonable actually if you down next year. But there was more to just show actually it was really popular. 284 uses of that kind of popular taken during that time. We've done lots of work on the 3G pitch throughout October and November. We've been trying our best now that we have a full staff team again to actually catch up with some of the works that we potentially neglected through periods of short staff. That involved replacing one of the 2 curtains so far. The other one's due to be replaced Thursday this week. We've made some repairs to the goals. We've replaced 6 of the 8 goal nets as well. Now that's actually a long process that wants to be, unfortunately. And we've also stepped up our maintenance on the pitch as well, whereas previously we were running the tractor over it once or twice a week. It's now 2 or 3 times a week. And that's hopefully going to result in the life expectancy of the pitch increasing. And I've just my third paragraph in this section here just says that a recent report inspection, I've organised 2 inspections and they've got back with the same results. Basically said that actually for its age the pitch is in good condition. And it should be a few years before we're thinking about carrying out some major works on it, which obviously is a good thing. I haven't noted in here that the pitch is due to undergo its FA testing in the summer next year, which happens every 3 years. And it is a requirement that the pitch passes that test because of the way it was funded through the facilities fund. So it is important that we keep up with that maintenance. So I'm pleased that the report so far have come back saying everything's good. And the last 2 things are about Christmas, which is obviously fast approaching. I've just noted there that Christmas opening hours for the centre. I won't run through this, but I've tried to keep the centre open to allow gym members to go in time in between Christmas and New Year. Traditionally, a very, very quiet period for the leisure centre, which you can imagine. We used to just close all the way from around the 23rd until the New Year, but because obviously we now have paying members and there is some demand, we basically set these times nice and early so that people know exactly when we're going to be open. And if they do want to come in and have a quick work between, they can do. And the very last thing is, one of my team members, this wasn't my idea, has decided that we should offer a community Christmas tree, just something for a little bit of fun, really. We're going to put up a blank, bare, naked Christmas tree and allow people to bring warm decoration in to decorate it. Some of my more Christmassy keen staff are not very happy with the idea. It's going to be a mess. But the whole idea was that it was a little bit of fun, and each gym member could bring in a ball or a decoration spot on the tree. And then what we're going to do is to write their member number on the bottom of their board, and at the end, we're going to get some of the kids from the Tunnels class to get some winners on the different surprises. So should be a bit of fun idea. I will take a picture of it before and after for the website just to see what it looks like. I'm intrigued. It could be terrible. It's going to be
Or I think you're going to get a competition for people, like their ball, how many balls on,
yeah, exactly. Yeah. So we've already had some gym members, some ideas. Yes. So that'd be an interesting idea, but nothing behind it. It's just going to be a bit of fun. So, yeah. That's it.
Thank you very much. Councillors, have you got any questions you want to ask?
Just like to reference to say how well it's doing and how well the leisure centre is doing. I think it's fantastic.
Marvellous.
Staff must be
Yeah,
commended. for
yeah,
that.
very much so. As well. Good. All right then. I'll then go on to item 7, which is parts of buildings to receive the report on page 9.
Thank you, Chair. I'm just going to swipe the microphone.
Yeah, sorry. I think Matt commented the sound's not great. Is that better? Okay, cool. Okay, thank you. So first item, water leak outside the Optalis offices has been fixed by the contractor. That was done relatively quickly before it was too much of an issue. The amenity team have painted additional yellow lines on the approach up to the leisure centre as part of the effort to reduce problem parking there at the weekend. In Woodford Park, the Garden of Remembrance, again, the amenities team replanted the low-level hedging around the entrance park there with some lavenders to replace the hedging that was in a poor state. We have 20 segregated recycling litter bins being installed on each on a concrete base throughout the park over the winter period. Those were purchased from the capital programmes approved by Strategy Resources, and that's part of the council's climate emergency plan. So it's a really good project for us. We did trial the bins up at Malone Park. They worked very well. They're covered as well, so they're a better bin anyway, but also enable us to do our bit in terms of recycling, so that they'll be installed over the winter. Remembrance, we had two very well attended events on both the Sunday the 10th and Monday the 11th. Both went very well with something probably around 400 or so attendees at each event, so really, really good. And we received a lot of positive comments about that. The living wall has been planted out. That's the wall on the side of the Oakwood Centre. That's been planted out by the amenities team using plugs grown on from the council's polytunnel, which is working really well for us, and been able to take control of that, spend a lot less on plants, and that's working really well. Bowls Green has had its autumn top dressing and prep for next season. It's just worth noting again, it was commented several times this season, the green was the best it's ever been, and the team worked really hard and introduced a new regime for doing that, along with the new irrigation system, which has worked really well. We have had some antisocial behaviour up at Malone Park, which was reported to us by a resident who was concerned. We've been liaising with the police team about that, and the amenities team have planted some pyracantha in that area, although it was ripped out. They are going to replant it. The plants were left on the ground, so they are replanting those over the winter, so they're established just to discourage activity in that particular area near to the gardens. There was some damage to some trees there, but I know the police team have been down there and spoken to them as well. Town Centre Garden, the team have planted just shy of 2,000 additional bulbs in the garden to provide more colour in there through spring. That's getting better every year now that it's established, and that's going well. And the Orchard Garden, which is the King's Orchard Garden over behind Coronation Hall, the excavation works and marking out have been carried out there in preparation for the tree planting and the construction of pathways and planters that will take place over the winter. Moving on to allotments, there's currently 70 prospective tenants on the waiting list there, and the next bit there is some information here relating to the Allotments Act. Following a query, it's actually a query I received from a tenant regarding the status in law of the site, which this council would never actually establish. So I undertook to find that out from Reading Borough Council, who confirmed that it is a statutory site and it was purchased specifically for use as allotments, which does afford it some protections in law going forwards, which is helpful. It does also mean that the Allotments Act applies, and although our current tenancy agreement refers to the Act in a number of areas, there's one key area it does not, which is relating to the keeping of hens and rabbits on plots. So that clause in the tenancy will be changed so that it's compliant with the terms of the Act. We are drawing up some terms and conditions and guidance for how that's implemented, because there's quite a lot of things required. You can't just go and do what you want. It's much stricter now, particularly since issues with bird flu, exactly that. So all hens have to be registered. There's very strict controls on the amount of space that's required and how they're looked after. So we're just working on that element of it. And we've been speaking with the Allotment Tenants Committee about that to keep everybody informed. Also to note, there's two large poplar trees which will be being removed by a tree surgeon towards the end of the month. There was a third tree which came down some months ago across Reading Road. They're very large, leaning quite badly. They're in the very wet area of the allotment plot as well. and having had them inspected, the recommendation was that they come down before they come down in the road, unfortunately. So that work's planned for the 25th and 26th. Just coming on to the last item in my report, there is to do with the duck feeding station, which is exciting. Members are asked to consider the installation of the duck feeding station as set out in the image on page 11. With some information about it there. Basically, it's a unit it's entirely solar powered, constructed from recycled plastic materials. There's no cost to the council, so it's installed and maintained for free. It dispenses an appropriate amount of duck feed in order to discourage feeding with bread and discarded food, which is a bit of an issue down there. 10% of all income comes back to the council. So there's no downsides to it. It's just a question of whether members are minded to pursue that. It's £1 per portion. That's the right term.
It's a great idea, actually. I've never really thought of this.
We were looking some time ago whether the lake work was done at how we would provide appropriate duck food to discourage people using bread, and we looked at the possibility of sending it from the leisure centre and things like that. So it does cover that side of things.
So if we have something like this installed, we'll be responsible for maintaining.
Not at all. All maintenance and all costs to do with it are borne by the provider.
And if you want it removed at any time,
yeah.
problem.
Yeah, there's no contract arrangement in that sense. So,
Carol.
Yes, two questions. First, as one ducks, it says duck feeder, but presumably it's okay for everything else on the
yes,
on the lake.
yeah.
Under the allotments piece, it talks about the query from the tenant. What was behind the query? I mean, I understand it's about the legal status, but why was he or she concerned?
It was just a question about whether that was correct or not. So I think the tenant had an inkling through their involvement in allotments that might not be right, and they're correct.
Yeah, thank you.
Well, in that case, I would like to propose that we consider the installation of a bird feeding station. Site to be determined by the officers. And all those in favour, please show their hands.
Are we considering or agreeing?
I think we agree to it.
Agreed.
We agree to it. All those against? Those to? That is approved. Thank you very much. The ducks will hang us, yeah.
I just think it's a great idea. It's a way of making it responsible,
So you don't feed them the wrong stuff. You don't carry it around. Okay then, in that case, I shall move on then to item 8, which is our Youth Support Service Task and Finish Group Working Report, which starts on page 12. But I will ask Anne, I was going to say, we just bring this round to you, to give us a summary on what is a very comprehensive report for you and Berkshire.
Well, first of all, I have to say thank you to Matt, because he actually did the report and it was a fantastic report. It's really very, very detailed, and we've all worked very hard this year to actually get this moving. It's, as you can understand, it's a very difficult thing to actually try and sort out something for the youth partnership, and it's been tried for quite a long time, the last few years, and I think we've done a very comprehensive report this time. We've done the terms of reference. We've sorted that we talked to the Berkshire Youth. They've done a fantastic project they undertook on behalf of the council, and the report was very comprehensive, although they were disappointed by the lack of survey reports from Bullmush at the Bullmush School. We don't know why the Broadway School didn't give many reports, but that's one of those things, I suppose. There was a slight uncertainty as to whether the engagements listed in the report related purely to those pupils living within Woodley. It was noted that Berkshire Youth had been asked for a clarification on this, although they had previously indicated they would determine the location of the survey respondents using their postcodes. We didn't feel that it was adequately done anyway. But we really, I mean, you must have read the report. It was it's a very long report, but very comprehensive. And we recommend that the Leisure Services Committee note the contents of the Youth Support Service Task and Finish Working Group. Summary report provided in Appendix A. And that the Leisure Services Committee consider the working group's recommendations as set out in the report on pages 6 and 7, section 4, paragraphs 42 to 46.
Thank you very much. Now, I believe Gareth Netford is also on the line. Did you have any comments that you'd like to make as well, Gareth?
Yeah, so good evening, everyone. Apologies if there's background noise. I'm in the middle of a youth club in Bracknell, so if it's got loud music, I apologise. No, I think just to echo some of the schools, obviously we had a really good response rate from Wangles in terms of the survey. Across Wokingham, it was really difficult. So we've been obviously with yourselves, but we have been working with Wokingham Borough Council around the surveys and trying to get it endorsed by heads of services directors, which gave us a bit more of a push through it. But across Wokingham, the response up until sort of the end of September was really quite low. But surveys are surveys. I think the real quality narrative comes from the face-to-face stuff, and we had some really good feedback and engagement throughout that, and hopefully that's echoed within the report and people have been able to see that. But yeah, so one thing that really stood out, and we've talked about this lots in Berkshire Youth and in other local authorities where we've done some similar sort of conversations, is how safe people felt in Woodley, and I think that's real merit to everyone around. And not only do we work with young people, we were able to work with lots of parents and community members. One, just to let them know who we were and what we were doing and why we were sort of in the community, but also just get some feedback from parents' points of views. And in the report, it states that whilst there's a lot of young people doing sport clubs and things like that, in the holidays, there's really not much. And they really took on the graffiti workshops and the Zorb football in particular. And those sorts of things, and a few of the others that I listed in the report that are things they'd like all year round. So obviously always happy to accept any questions with it. But yeah, on a personal note, it was quite nice to do a bit of work in somewhere other than Bracknell, because that's kind of where I've been for the last 15 years. So yeah, really good. And yeah, unless there's any particular questions, obviously feel free to fire them over. So, but I think as I say in the report, you've got some of the stuff that's important to young people, lots of which that will be supported through school, and within those sort of trusted relationships, whether they are community-based ones and not always youth groups, but sport clubs, and such a large portion of young people that we spoke to, either through the survey or face-to-face, were involved in sports clubs. But equally, you've got the very similar amount of young people that were in the community. So find their hobbies within activities at parks and recreation areas. So one of the staff, I'll just point out, one of the staff that was working on the project couldn't believe that at the Woodford Leisure Centre, that young people could turn up and pay £2 just to have a kickabout for an hour, because I don't know anywhere else that does that. But that's such a great incentive for people just to go to a safe place and play football. The only thing they came out with was that they wouldn't mind doing some group-based activities like mini tournaments and things like that. But I think there's some great facilities there. But as I said, as it says in the report, there's obviously some bits that young people would like as well.
Good. Thank you, Gareth. I appreciate your comments. Yes.
Yeah,
how, I have a question about that. Do we include anything about that in this project? Do we include anything cycling in Woodley? Because this is the youngest. I use sports service task and it's in the part of finishing those.
I do not think it's specifically included, but that's not to say it might be something
No,
that
because
we think of.
according to the previous report in finishing those, we discussed already in the last year as well regarding the cycling. So we was going to discuss with the Reading Borough Council and other, if we can take help from other groups, the cycling groups, if we don't have enough, so at least we can get some advice and suggestions and how we can give anything to youngsters to people to use the cycling in Woodley. So
Kate, did you want to add anything to that, Scott?
It wasn't something that came up, and I don't know whether the youngsters. We don't have a cycling club here.
We don't. I mean, we do support cycling proficiency
Yes.
quite substantially, don't we? At the Woodford Park Leisure Centre. I mean, that's definitely well supported by there. They use that area, and it's older schools who take their kids there. So I think there's an element of cycling that we do using town council
Reading have got a
facilities.
cycling club, don't they?
Have they got a
Reading
cycling
have got
club?
cycling
no, I understand, but when I saw the report, there's no point in not even one task about the cycling. It's not included at all. Because
Are you thinking of the cycling group of it? Because there is
No,
another
it was
group, isn't
before.
there?
yeah, it was included in the previous our meeting in the youth sports finishing. It was a part of the.
Yeah. I'm not against it at all. I mean, it's just that I obviously didn't come out of the consultation with youth in terms of things that they would like to, have in terms of a youth service in Woodley. So it's obviously didn't get drawn out of that. But I'm not. But it's not to say we can't be offering it sometime in the future, especially after once we've gone through the cycle of power generation. That might be something we can.
I mean, to be fair, a lot of the youngsters are on bikes around about the park or the precinct.
Yeah.
So tonight on my way over in the car park, they're on their bikes. So it is something obviously that interests.
And it might be something we can offer as an educational course or something like that in terms of, how to do it properly, what to do, what not to do, especially when it comes to electric bikes. I know that's a very controversial area, but we should probably be thinking about. I mean, that's come up at town council a number of times over the last few years. Of course, we've got no guidance from the central government, but maybe we will do it in the next couple of years. In which case, maybe we can support those sorts of things. I think we need to be open to it. That's what I'm trying to say. There is a thank you to
Because I would really appreciate if you include this as well in the part of this. This is the main part of sports and especially for health as well. It's
very good for health and it's
for the future. This is how the traffic is going on.
Of course.
I mean, Public Park has a track.
Oh, a club and a track.
Yes.
Both don't have anything, do they?
We haven't got anything at all in the way of facility unless it's a county park. That's all we've got forward. It's not there, it's not their site.
Something to consider. So, does any other council have any other comments before I get on to the recommendations to start on page 20? What I'm proposing to, David, I recognise you from the floor. I understand you have a question.
Yeah, well, would you mind, I've just got one or two comments.
Please, do you want the microphone?
Yeah, please.
You just have that.
Thank you. Evening, everyone. First of all, let me congratulate every member of the working party, because that was a very comprehensive report that you've come out with. I've been through it, I don't say word by word, and overall I'm in agreement with everything. 2 points that immediately come to my mind is in Woodley, we've got a lot of different ethnicities. I hope I pronounced that word right. But I wonder, and perhaps Berkshire can answer this, that when the surveys were done, well, I see we spoke to the Baptist Church and Emmanuel Church, but has anyone contacted the youth services of the Muslim community, the Sikh community, or indeed the Hindu community here in Woodley, which are quite large? Because I think they may have a few ideas for their own youth that they would like to put forward. The other thing is, it came to mind that reading that report, this is an ideal situation to put in an application for a lottery grant. If the report is followed and we go down the route initially of a mobile van, by the time we've bought the mobile van and had it converted, there's not going to be a great deal of change out of 89,000 that we're holding in reserve, left to cover administration or organisation expenses. Looking at the lottery rules, they are anxious to help communities, which include parish councils and town councils, to help the young in the area. There's certain criteria it has to meet. It's got to, it must scale up the impact to help make significant changes to services or systems. We've got to be running it already, which we are and have done for the last 20 odd years through the JACs. So we're actually building it up, and I think it would be looked on favourably by the Lottery Commission. Whether that doesn't mean to say we get it, but if we don't apply it, then we're certainly not going to get it. And I think we could do with some income, even if we have to put 50% up ourselves. That would be £50,000, say we put up £50,000 lottery grant. We've still got £40,000 in the bank to cover the organisation expenses without touching the 27,000 a year that we allocate. Reading deeply into the lottery grant situation, some events like this help if there are other similar things involved as well. So early town council, for example, the original group of which I was part of, we had discussions about doing a joint venture on the youth. We discounted it because the only hub that was at the back of Asda. It might be good for people in Melody to get there. It's certainly good for the children of Woodley to get there. But, you know, by getting a merger going, we might have greater force in an application for a lottery grant. I think that needs investigation. It needs a lot of work on it. So my thought was, amongst the recommendations you put, are that the group finished on the 20th of November, tomorrow. I personally would like to suggest the group doesn't finish tomorrow, it continues, and you actually sit down and look at the prospects of doing it. Much the same as when we did the play area, to make it fully inclusive. We went over and beyond what was necessary and bought a lot of equipment, which took us close on 100,000 above what we had originally budgeted. Surely it's better to do that with this and be able to go in with a new situation, fully funded, than, you know, to leave us in a position whereby 12 months' time, we might be struggling to pay the organisation. Just my thought, and I give it to you as the committee to discuss and come up with your own ideas. Thank you.
Thank you, David. Thank you, David. That's two great points. Please do.
Let's just make a quick comment in terms of potential funding. I think when we're at the point of costing up specific elements of what that offer might look like, we can absolutely, as part of that, look at funding opportunities for those specific items, and they will need to, obviously, as you said, be built around a specific project or part of the project. So we would include that and look at what's available to do that. As you said, match funding with organisations like that is probably what they're looking for. And the council does have some funds to put towards this.
Very much. Okay, so I will start from page 20 on the recommendations. I'll take each one in turn, giving you the opportunity to say a few words or have an opinion, and just vote along as we go. But I think it's worth taking each one of those in line. And okay, if I get off course, please correct me. Okay, so on item 42, which is like the work undertaken to the Living Services Committee to approve all their recommendations in relation to the council's aims in providing a youth support service. The council support service provision for all children between the ages of 9 and 21, with a specific focus on supporting those who are deemed to be or preventing those who are becoming vulnerable, especially those not currently engaging with existing youth provision. I think there's much discussion over what this range of age should be, because it tends to sort of like vary between depending on who you talk to. So I read the commentary in the notes there. So Carol, Kay, have you got any particular thing you want to say before we vote on this?
No, it's purely that the age 9 is younger than we have done before, but it's purely and simply because that's the last year of primary school, and that's the year we should catch them before they go on to senior school, when they have this major
change in their lives, yeah.
Actually, that's starting a little bit before.
Well, we made it 9, so it covered every child in the last year.
Okay, cool.
And 21 did seem older for the majority of young people, but we were also taking into account those with special education.
Special needs, that,
Yes,
yeah,
yeah.
particularly, who are, unfortunately, they do tend to be this, don't they?
Yeah. And actually in law, it goes up to 25 if they've got special education needs, but we did discuss that, didn't we?
Yeah, they,
And
any other comments from councillors? Yes, Danny.
It's just a question on the age groups, in terms of providing the services, because of their age groups. And I think that is thinking of different services of activities to a age group, or is it just the?
now, what we were thinking of, obviously, the younger ones, they would eat earlier in the day. So, you know, you could actually have the 12-year-olds or whatever, that would be seen or would have somewhere to go earlier in the day. And obviously the older ones would go later. But you can't really mix 9-year-olds with 18-year-olds doing work, so.
Is it?
Yes, there
Is it, there is any for like, if it's for the specific like primary schools, you include the primary school children and the higher secondary school children. The limitation between these all are just the age factor.
We did it, we had to do it on the age factor. And basically, when they're in their last year of primary school, they are vulnerable, they really need to be helped in a lot of ways to overcome this huge change before they go into senior school. And so normally the age group is from 11 upwards, but we felt that they needed that help.
Gareth, do you have a comment that you wanted to make?
Sorry, yeah. In terms of just to jump onto the age groups thing, so a lot of our projects they start at younger ages because one, as it was mentioned, it supports with that transition of school from year 6 to year 7, and helps equip them a little bit, not necessarily to deal with everything, but understand a network and what that looks like and some of those personal skills to support that. And then obviously once you've got them younger, then you can create a pathway for them to develop onto stuff. It's really difficult trying to get 15, 16-year-olds to break a cycle and join a club unless they want to. Whereas normally with that end of primary age, you get buy-in from the parents, which obviously support the transport and that. So yeah, that was the one comment I was just going to make on that. But I actually originally put my hand up just to apologise because I can't hear anything from the conversation. So I didn't know if anything was being directed towards myself initially at the end of the report. So I've got, obviously it's quite quiet, but I've got a really loud youth club here as well. So apologies if I missed any questions.
Yeah, we saw you put your hand up. I'm sorry if you didn't hear us. Some of us, but I'm speaking too loudly and I need to pass the mic around a little bit more. So sorry about that.
No, that's fine. But yeah, no, just in terms of the age groups, I just sort of echo that. That if you're looking at starting a provision, that's normally the kind of the age we recommend. And obviously, so some of our projects will be up to 11-year-olds rather than school. So when they do transition into year 7, they've still got that element of support for a few months until some clubs go up until the end of year 7 to support that. But yeah, it's kind of what fits that area and what's going on. So, but I think once you pitch it, sort of your initial age group as a target is the important thing. So you don't kind of wipe out all those ones. And also if you work with someone who's 10 years old, you've kind of got 5, 6, 7, 8 years to support them, whereas you're kind of more of an intervention sometimes if you're tackling some of the old thing. Not that there's not a need for it. We've got projects that are 14 to 17 and 35, 40 young people a session. However, most of those have been members from earlier ages and worked their way through.
Yeah, great. Thanks, Gareth. Okay, in terms of the who then, can I have a show of hands to approve that for the 9 to 21, please? All those against? All those abstaining? That has been approved. I'll go on to when then. The council will primarily focus on providing their youth support service provision during school holidays on Friday evenings between 3 and 8, whilst also seeking to provide further services when and if achievable on Mondays to Thursdays between 3 and 7, and during national holidays events like Halloween, for example. So that's just to provide you with a little bit of where we hope to focus and provide, to your question, Danny, earlier on, you've got the other ones earlier, the other ones later, and what have you. Yeah. Carol.
Yes, just to ask why weekends are being here. I'm sure there's a good reason. It was felt, we were advised anyway, that it was Fridays. Oh, sorry.
That it was Fridays that there were the problems. Saturdays didn't seem to have the same sort of problems. So we have to go by the advice that we were given on the problems with the youth.
Yeah. Matt, I understand you've got a question as well you want to ask, what comment you want to make.
Yeah, I was just going to make a comment on the specific hours. There wasn't actually a lot of feedback from people in terms of timings, but the Thames Valley Police fed in some information about when they encountered higher levels of antisocial behaviour, which tended to be in the hours after school, before parents would expect their slightly older teenagers to be home. So that they said sort of 3 o'clock to 7 o'clock during the week. And then later on Friday evenings, but they didn't encounter so many issues over the weekends, which primarily is where that comes from. And obviously the youth engagement project that Berkshire Youth did, they were the ones that kind of identified that there is a gap in the school holidays where there isn't that sort of provision for those older age groups to, you know, where you've got kind of school clubs for slightly younger, there isn't for those older age groups and activities during that time. So it was only really those two bits of feedback that we had that kind of guided those sorts of times, which is why we felt we would focus on that.
Thank you, Matthew.
Thank you.
Any other questions from councillors? Then I will put it to the vote. Can I have all those that want to approve the when? Show of hands, please. All those against? All those abstaining? That is approved. And then go on to the where. The council primary seeks to provide its youth support services provision from a mobile venue, e.g. a van or preferred bus or trailer, and to supplement this, the council also provides services from other venues and facilities, either owned by the council or not, where agreement can be reached as appropriately to the activity or event being delivered. Does any of the councillor have any comment they'd like to make before we vote? Okay, in that case, oh, Danny, yes. Do you want to?
No, I just had a clarification. I think I should have said the document is very clear, detailed, and depth in going through these surveys. I think that's quite comprehensive. The only question I had is also with David on this, where investment on the any kind of vehicle with the equipment is quite a hefty investment before we actually implement anything. So I'm just trying to understand. I think there is a strategy of implementation here. Is it going to be like a crawl, walk, run implementation, or are we just going in full on when we are auditing for where? Because we have multiple things going on here with the implementation of where we actually going to provide the service. If we are going to be, is it what we are agreeing that we're going to go ahead with this converting a bus or a trailer, or is it something still in kind of initial stage where we can actually explore the options before we actually invest in that?
We would obviously explore the options, but it was felt that a mobile facility was the best way, because we have various areas in Woodley and they don't mix. So we have wages at one end and Bournemouth at the other. And if you try and have a set place, one or the other won't turn up. So you'll actually
excluding one.
Stop, yes. So and we have got money that is available for a facility of some sort. And so that was the theme. But since David has actually given us a more comprehensive look at actually looking for lottery funding, it might be better for us to actually explore the lottery funding idea.
I sort of see these. I see this on two phases. The first phase, as you say, is the core phase, where we sort of agree that this is the direction we're going. So that's the first bit, I think, which is what we're covering tonight. The second bit, once we've gone back to strategy and resources, and we've got their say so, that they're prepared to fund it, that's when the more difficult work starts. That's when you start to plan it, execute it, and there will be a number of different phases, but those phases haven't been worked out in detail yet. But I think tonight it's more about saying, right, okay, these are the things we want to do. This is the high level stuff. Yeah, we've got the money. this is what we'd like to do. Now, in terms of the funding, for example, that's something I think that comes after the fact that we want to do it. The answer is yes, we want to do it. Okay, we have a number of options to fund, but that we can decide how we're going to do that afterwards. You see, I think the idea of lottery funding seems a great thing for me, and I would definitely support that. So,
Yes.
yeah, that's something. Okay, we'll go on to Gareth. Gareth, yeah, you've got some comments.
Yeah, sorry, just had a thought about the funding in terms of creating something that might be a bit more long-term sustainable. So in some areas, housing associations get really behind some community investment. I don't know if they've been approached or if anyone works directly with local housing associations, but I know in Bracknell, they've always funded parts of the ways, but they're really keen to make sure that their residents have got provision within the community, whether that is facilities, whether that is some pop-up events or all those sorts of things. And maybe worth finding out who the community investment manager is for there and seeing how they might, when you look at the sort of half funding, sort of maybe that's an option. Not only do they have their own community investment budget, but they'll also have agreements with places like Travis Perkins that they'll get resources from to do their maintenance side of it, but then they have to put a percentage back into they create a pot that you can apply for money for as well. So just an idea in terms of some of that part funding opportunities that might be a 2-3 year agreement that you can get just to, once you've got these facilities, just to keep the upkeep of them.
Right, Gareth, that's a great suggestion. Let's put that on the list.
Yes.
Thank you. Okay, so on the where, can those all in favour to approve, please raise their hands. All those against? All those abstaining? That's approved. Now on to page 21, which is the what. So the council seeks, through its purpose support provision to 1, provide regular activity-led sessions, for example, sports, music, arts, or other appropriate workshops, training and courses. 2, to provide irregular activity-led sessions, for example, competitions, one-off workshops, activity sessions and structured trips. 3, facilitate and coordinate the provision of a variety of youth services and activities delivered in partnership with external agencies. And lastly, on 4, provide a setting for young people to casually meet, chat and spend time with friends. So those are the 4 what's. Does anyone have any questions or they would like to ask before we go to about those? Carol?
Yeah, it's not really a question. I'm looking at the who, when, where, what. I think we do have something missing, and that's the how. Because when we look at the working group objectives, there's all those objectives that have not been met. I know these things take time, but we need to have not only what we'd like to have, which what is really a wish list, isn't it? It's quite ambitious, but the how, and David spoke earlier about one of the hows would be to seek sort of outside funding. And there's other things have been mentioned. So whilst I agree with the what, although I think it's probably very ambitious, that we ought to be saying how we're going to achieve that. I'd be happy to propose that we insert something in that says how and discuss that.
I think the how is the budget that we've got. So we've already got a budget which has been earmarked for this. That's quite clearly stated on one of the occasions. So quite clear on the how. The how will be approved by the Strategy and Resources Committee, and then it'll be back to leisure services, then to do the planning part. So Kevin.
Matt.
Matthew, do you have a comment as well, Matthew?
That's all right, no problem. I was just going to say, obviously, yeah, as Carol's picked up, that was covered in the original working group's objectives. One of the things that we tried to pick up in here, that because the youth engagement project survey element didn't get enough responses earlier on in the summer term, it was extended into the autumn term to try and get responses. So the original intention was to have the report back by the end of August, which would have given the working group then a couple of months, September and October, to have gone away and provided more detail on feasibility, cost, and that how element. Because there was a delay to making sure we had a decent number of responses to the survey, The survey then didn't come back and we didn't get the report till mid-October. So that is why that level of information is missing for now. That is also why under recommendation 46, it asks members of this committee to consider whether or not to actually extend the date of the working group to go away and find that information out now, or whether to essentially task the officers with going away and completing those objectives, provide the how at a later date. I just wanted to give that little bit extra context.
Thank you, Matthew. That's a good point. Any other questions on the warrants?
I was going to say,
Yes.
we did discuss this recently, and we do have a good amount of youth workers within Woodley doing a lot of work in various areas. So the who would obviously include a lot of those people who are already out in a youth partnership forum, aren't they? And we already have them, they already work with
exist,
us.
they already work.
And a lot of them can be contacted, and we do have other contacts as well. So obviously, we didn't have time to do, that is.
That is yeah. Thank you. All right then. So,
Mr. Chair, can I just come back on it? I think
yes,
it's not clear, it's a brilliant report that I'm sure Max has been the one to put this together. And it goes right the way through and then it kind of stops. And you've said it's going to go to SNR, which I can see in here, but it's not clear if anybody outside of the council as to what's happening. And I just think for clarity, it would be good to have a how, and then it's all set out there, and then the working group can work towards those. What might be 5 points.
does anybody else have any comments?
Well, I think Carol possibly has the point. We need to have somebody who's going to be responsible for driving that house forward. And at the moment, it is a bit general as to whether it's going to be the committee continuing, or whether it's going to be Matthew and Kevin, or whether we're going to start off by appointing somebody as a youth, as a sort of coordinator of the project, which might be the first step. And they would have the expertise that we don't have in order to drive it.
No, I do understand what you're saying. It's
Yes.
yes, David.
Yeah, I'm agree with her because we need to look out on this one, how we are giving the service provisions, who, when, where, what. But this is all our, how we are going to achieve this one, and which authorities, which club or whatever is we need to include the fifth point.
I think we're going to have to continue with the task and finish again, aren't we?
Yeah, I mean, we need at least one more meeting to decide if we were going to pass it over to somebody to coordinate it, you know.
Because that was when, I mean, we're sort of skipping ahead a little bit here. This was sort of like later on in this agenda. We're going to cover that in points 45 and 46. So if I can just get past the what, and then we'll get on to the how bit. At least then I can get that bit voted through, and then we can start looking at that last bit. But I do understand your concerns, and that was one of the questions I was going to ask: is do we continue the task and finish group, or do we ask our officers to finish those bits up? But that's hold your thoughts there. So in terms of the what, I'm going to ask for a show of hands to approve that. All those against, all those abstaining. That has been passed. Okay, the next one here is item 43. That the working group also recommends that the Leisure Services Committee approve the recommendations above, and that the strategy for services be updated to include the following. So this is an update to the strategy documents, as opposed to anything else. So one, to reflect the work of the working group in strategy. Two, to reflect the approved approaches approved above in the strategy. Three, to update the time period covering the strategy to cover 2025 to 2030. This is probably just to bring it up to date. Kevin, any comments?
Yeah, just really, what it gives us the opportunity to do is for that strategy to be taking into account the work that's been done by this group and survey work.
Yeah. Doesn't know any of that, yeah. Is everyone happy with that? Okay, can I have a show of hands to say it's approved? All those against? All those abstaining? That is approved, thank you. 44, it is recommended that a redrafting be undertaken by officers and then presented to leisure services to review. And once approved, the draft updated strategy will then need to be presented to strategy resources, followed by a formal adoption by full council. I think that's really just. I should have taken those two together.
No, that's fine. Yeah, that's the formality to it.
Okay. All those happy to approve, please raise our hands. All those against, all those abstaining. Thank you very much. That is approved. Okay. Going on to working group objectives 45. Finally, the Leisure Services Committee should know that the following objectives set out in the working group's terms of reference have not been completed. So, as Karen rightly pointed out, objective F, G, and H. And I won't go through them, but you can see them down there. And then, really, it's item 46, based on the above. The working group requested the Leisure Services to consider noting that the working group shall cease its by the 20th of November, or it should extend its stay in the working group as it fits. I think from the discussions that I've heard and read into that we're thinking that the task and finish group should continue for another number of months in order to complete objectives F to H with the support of the council officers and the community to do so. I think the question is to see how that will come out in F to H. And I think it's actually right, actually, in the task and finish group get to grips with that rather than just leaving it to the Sorry. You'll support us, I know, but I think it's a good thing that we have some hands on that because we've heard some good suggestions here tonight from David about lottery funding. Graham has also come up with some good suggestions about how we might solicit money that's available from a housing association, for example. So I think there's all things that can be considered. And the police as well, yeah, and the police. So there's lots of people that we can go to help us. Sorry, Gareth, you had a comment.
No, sorry, I hope to. Is there any more questions or anything around the box? Only because I need to go and join a staff meeting. There's been an issue.
Thank you very much for your support. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, no worries. Thanks for having me. Yeah, any questions, feel free to fire them over. And myself or Berkshire, between us, can support us wherever we can.
Really appreciate it. Well done.
Yeah, no, thank you. Cheers, everyone. Bye-bye.
So the question, I guess, really is how long should the task and finish continue on for? Okay, any ideas?
6 months.
6 months.
Enough? Kevin would be.
Kevin?
I mean, it depends. I think that can be.
Or can we flexible?
It can be left open-ended.
What do you suggest?
I mean, I think you probably need a target time.
You do need a target. I don't want to leave it open. I think you should definitely have a target. But if we said, I don't know, by the end of July, assuming holidays and things like that, but you know, if we had it done by the end of May, no one's going to be unhappy about that. So,
Matt, did you want to say something?
Matt, did you want to say something?
Yeah, the only thing I was going to say is we usually, when we set the kind of the end date of the groups, we normally try and set it for the day after a meeting of the committee, so that it doesn't run out before the committee has a chance, like tonight, to consider whether it wishes to extend the group. But we haven't set the meeting schedule for next year yet. That's going to come up next week. So the last meeting of this group is the 25th of March next year, sorry.
In that case, what dates in this year did we have the Leisure Services Committee? Because they'll be broadly the same, won't they? I'm just trying to set a.
Yeah.
So we had Leisure Services meeting this year. In what months?
Let me have a quick look at. I'm just going to have a quick look and see at what's going to be recommended
Bring the calendar.
It is.
26th of March, because it could always
We consider that.
I mean, what I would say is I know this has it's taken a long time, and I know historically there's been people who've felt that some of it has dragged out a bit, and actually the work in the last year has been really good. It would be really good if we could. I think we can probably over the 2.5 months to that 25th of March try and pull some more information together with an attempt to try and get that how figured out by the end of this municipal year. I know that's a bit of a target, and if we don't hit it, you can extend again, or that's your option. But it would, I think, rather than otherwise it extends and extends and extends, and we don't have kind of a challenging target.
Bring it to an end. Okay, well that's saying that's extended to the end of March then, 2025.
Yeah.
And so under item 46, we go for option B, which is to extend the working group to the end of March 2025.
specific date.
Is there a date? 25th?
Oh, well, we can say the date after
Yeah.
the leisure services.
Date after that leisure services meeting. That's fine.
The 26th of March.
26th of March. Okay, great. Can I have a show of hands approving that, please? All those against? All those deferring? That is approved. Fantastic. Great, I should go on to item 9 now, which is Friends of Woodford Park updates, page 42, appendix 9. Do we have anybody from the Friends here?
No, I mean, just to note the ongoing work of the group there, and also just to thank them for their efforts today in taking part in the tour of the park.
Yes.
Part of the financial.
Good. So we'll call our thanks then for that. That's pretty good. Let's go on to item 10, future agenda items. Okay, and then item 11, which is publicity and website. When we do have our strategy approved, done by full council, that goes onto the website. Is that the sort of thing that goes up on there that people can see? So I think that's a great piece of work and be able to get out there when it is formally approved. Great. I'd just like to thank, yes.
Just got one very quick thing, about Woodford Park and the great news there. I mean, I presume that's going to have publicity on the website. So if not, I would suggest that I've done all the good work being on there and the great stats and stuff. And maybe a little mention obviously about the Christmas tree as well. Be interesting.
I'm sure that'll definitely make it.
You might get more forward.
That's it. Sounds good to me. I would like to thank though, this particular meeting has been dedicated really to you support, so I'm very happy with that. You and your group of councillors done a tremendous job, as has the team of Kevin's team who have supported you in that. Berkshire Youth have done a tremendous amount. It's an amazing amount of work that's gone into that. I'm not entirely surprised that we ran over a little bit, but I think it's worth doing the work to put the groundwork in, so we're clear about what we're doing and why we're doing it. Great to have everyone's feedback. Thank you for yours, everyone. And David.
I would just like to add in, if that's okay, rather than take credit for something, Matthew did a huge amount of work.
Yeah, he's really Matthew. You've really taken this on as a project, so well done. Yes, it's definitely really appreciated.
It's what you pay me for, Darren. It's not a problem.
I know you do, but you love it. And we love that you love it.
That's not what you said the other day.
Okay, councillors, this meeting is closed. Thank you very much.